Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Special session Mayor and City Council meeting 3:30 p.m. Tuesday, July 16th, 2019, City Hall Complex. I call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, will you please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Number 3, public hearing. Is there anybody here that would like to speak on a public hearing? Okay, go ahead. State your name and your address, please.
Yes, my name is, I'm sorry.
He beat you to the podium. He beat you to the podium.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. My name is Eduardo Delcy, 2 Dixon Court, Keno Springs. I live outside of the city, but I am connected to the city services, and I'm active, current chair of the library board. And we're here to extend our appreciation and support that that the city has extended to our library services, which features the entire county with the collaboration that we're showing with the County Board of Supervisors. We work in a similar situation with them, but our role is primarily an advisory board. We're not an executive board, and work closely with the staff at the library here in the city. And we know that there were a couple of items that were removed from the budget that were proposed by the director, and we're very much knowing that we'll be able to continue to be able to achieve those recommendations in the future. We're here present with a good number of our board members, and if some of them want to have a statement that they want to make before the council, not a single problem from our side. So thank you very much for your continued support.
Thank you very much. Would you like to speak? Yes.
Yes, my name is Nan Fitzpatrick, and I live in Tubac, and I am on the advisory board. I'm a member at large on the advisory board for the library, and thank you for letting me speak. I had written a letter that I was going to mail to you, and I decided to just come down and read it to you. It's very brief. Dear council members and mayor, as a member of the advisory board of the Nogales City, Santa Cruz County Public Library, I want to thank the City Council for its continued support of the library and to encourage your passage of the library's fiscal 2019 to 2020 budget as submitted by its director, Denise Lopez. Since joining the library board in 2018, I have seen firsthand the ongoing opportunities provided to the community by the library staff and its volunteers, from enhanced educational opportunities and professional development to English language learning experiences and after-school tutoring programs for young people. The Nogales City Santa Cruz County Public Library is a great resource center that deserves all of our support, and thank you for considering my comments. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I'm Veronica Sines, and I am the member that represents Rio Rico. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and Mr. Dr. Felix. I just want to really express my appreciation for what I've seen happen in this since I've been on the board. I don't believe in the past we've seen a lot of progress moving forward with the library, and I want to take this opportunity to let you know that the board really appreciates what Denise Lopez has been able to achieve in her tenure. She's gone to great lengths to get some state grant funding, and particularly something that's very near and dear to my heart is the after-school homework tutoring program that she's been able to put in place at the housing project. And it's near and dear to my heart because I know that so many children that come from poverty absolutely do not play on a level playing field. If you have access to computers at home, internet at home 24/7, and the only ones that you can have access to are the ones that are provided by the library, we're doing something really, really good for these children. And so I want to thank you for supporting the library as you have, and I hope that we can continue to expand some of these wonderful programs that truly help the most disadvantaged of our children and community members. Thank you so much for listening to my comments.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else? And actually, in the issue of the library, I remember when we were having discussions on this during our budget process. I remember Councilman Varona commented on some of the issues that we needed to improve in the library, and we, believe me, the whole council, we support the library 100%. If there's any need in the future for the library that we can help as a council, we'll be there to support you on this. And the thing is right now that we're trying to get over the hump on the budget itself. And things change. You know, it could change by the end of the year, it could change at the beginning of the year, according to the comparison reports that we'll get. But of course, we support the library 100% and education 100%. So having Mr. Varona, having Mr. Councilman Rojas here, who are both part of the school board and educators, and believe me, between both of them, they educate Mr. Hanesian every day when we're here. And Mr. Hanesian is, I think he's getting to that level, isn't he, Mr. Varona?
Little by little, but he's gradually getting there.
Yes, he's getting there. But we're there with you 100% on the library. Were you going to say something, Mr. Hanesian?
I was just going to say that I think we should ask, is anybody that wants to talk about the budget, the final budget?
Yeah, but they're talking about the budget too. Even though it's the library, that's the library budget.
It still falls in the same. Sometimes the trumpeters misconstrue presentations.
Yeah, because and you can talk about the PD if you want to. I'm sure you're okay with that. And you can talk about, but you're okay with that too. So is there anybody else who would like to discuss the budget itself in this budget hearing? Hearing none?
Oh, Mayor,
Okay, go ahead.
I think I want to throw something in here. I don't know what it might do to the budget, but I have been having some conversations with some officers, police officers. You know, I think I'm approachable sometimes. And
Just
sometimes. Well, in this case, I was. And one of the things that was brought up, at least to my attention, were the body cameras. And some of them are aware for the necessity for that, but in some cases, and considering the situation that our budget is in, they prefer other things other than the body camera. Which I have a tendency to agree, because, you know, when you look at the police officers, they're loaded already. I mean, they've got all kinds of stuff, and I think, to understand their point, I can see the excessiveness in what they carry. I would like for us to maybe reconsider that. Or the other thing that was brought to my attention is sometimes there are certain things that look really good, and they're funded, they are supported for like a year, and then it's dropped. And there's several things there, and I don't know if the chief would like to engage in the conversation, but there are other things that were brought to my attention, and I wanted to kind of bring before the council to discuss. Situations where they are supporting a certain function, whatever that function is, and then all of a sudden they stop supporting that. So, you know, because it's expensive, not only for initially to go into the body count, but then the following year, and then I think the following year, I don't know. I don't think that we necessarily engaged enough on that.
You know, let me just, this is the thing, yes, we could probably discuss it, and as you know, we've been through the tentative, and with the tentative, the budget can only go down, not up at all. But I honestly believe, I don't know, I'm speaking for myself,
Sure, sure.
Councilman, that I think on something like this, of course, if the budget's going to be reduced, I don't see any problem on it, but I would love to see a study session
On that?
on that issue, discuss it, because we did discuss it,
Yeah.
and there was
Well,
some officers that supported it, and then they went after some federal money for it, you know, and it is a large cost for us,
Yeah,
you know, to
it
match
is,
it.
yeah.
I understand that, and but I rather instead of making a decision or even putting it on an agenda in a certain way, I rather put it on an agenda study session and have the police department come talk to us and the chief and let us all have dialogue with that if it's okay with you.
Yeah.
And then you know, down the road we can, you know, like I said, the only good thing about it is that if it does go somewhere, it's going to go away.
Right,
Because
right.
the budget we
Right.
can't go up on it.
Right,
Now we
right.
can- You know, but I mean, let's do that if it's okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that'd be fine, man.
Councilman Barone?
We did spend a lot of time talking about the body cameras.
Mhm.
I'm a supporter of body cameras for our officers. I think it's good for our community. It tape records everything that the officers are doing, the engagements that they have with the public, and if they become in harm's way, everything is going to be recorded. The only thing I wanted to see from the police chief is the policy on the body cameras to make sure that what has happened nationwide doesn't happen here in Nogales, that when there is a confrontation, that the officers turn off the cameras. That I don't want to see. But I just want to make one other point here, Mayor, on this one. I just want to make sure that we don't set a precedence with our staff. We have a city manager and we have a chief of police. And we have to make sure that they're entitled to come to us, but I would prefer that they follow the protocol and go to the chief of police and have the chief of police and the city manager make those presentations to us. Because then we're gonna have every staff member thinking that they can come to us so that we can supersede the actions of the city manager or the director themselves. I mean, if they wanna come up, they don't need to come up and talk to anybody in private. That podium is open to every member of our community here to come and to speak to all 7 of us at the same time, and then we can have a dialogue on that. But I would prefer that not a single councilman, not me or anybody else, be singled out, that we come over here and they come over to the podium so that we hear both sides of the issues before we make a decision. We have to make sure that we keep within the parameters of a good government. And if we're going to have a good government, we have to have a policy set where we listen to the city manager and the department heads. I think that's
Mr. Mayor?
very important.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
So are you saying that I brought it out in the right way?
Oh,
By bringing it, that's
yes,
fine.
that's fine, but what I just want everybody to realize that instead of talking just to me as one
Right,
council,
right. I
that
agree.
they come over here and talk to all 7 of us at the same time. What is their concern? And then we refer it back to the city manager to talk to the chief of police and come back with a recommendation for us. So we're not caught in individual instances of developing individual policies to meet the needs of individual employees. That I want to stay away. We should work as a complete team that when they talk to one, they have to talk to all of us at the same time.
And that's, you know, that's the reason I commented about if we have a study session. If that's the case, Chief, you know, because I know we talked a lot about it. And I don't know how far you've gotten with this program on the body cams. I don't know if you, I don't know. Have you gotten anywhere with it yet? Or could you please give us a little update on that?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Actually, we're in the process of having Axon, which is a company that we, one of the companies that we're choosing, or we're considering to come down and do a trial period for us. As we speak, I'm working on to putting together the best policy possible, so the consequences are there as far as to somebody turning off their camera in an instant where something needs to be recorded, because that would obviously be contrary to the reason why we're getting the cameras. I think the camera issue, it is expensive, but that goes along with our department and our city being transparent. And I think a lot of these complaints that we get could be rectified or either solidified or turned around by visual and audio evidence as far as to did it happen, did it not happen, or how did it happen. So that's where we're at. I think it takes away a lot of civil liability, and that's the reason why we're pursuing this project. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's totally up to you guys. What
Chief, in support of Councilman Rojas, have you done some type of survey with your officers to see what's the percentage of officers that would like a body cam against pros and cons on it?
not an official body, not an official, I guess, count as far as to who's for it.
Well,
who's
what does it
against
look like?
I think that the majority of them are for it.
Are for it?
It's actually in protection of the officer itself, and it's also in protection of the community. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's up to Mayor and Council to, you know, what your wishes are.
You know, and I agree, Chief. You know, I think that we need to look at the pros, the cons, the cost, and not just for a year or two. I'm talking about the long haul and what the total expense will be for that long term. Because, well, and I was thinking as you were talking about, you know, some of the programs that we've had in the past. For example, the patrol, the bike patrol. That's non-existent now, is that correct?
Right.
So, and that's what I'm referring to. Programs that we've had in the past where we buy, and they had good bikes, is that correct?
Yes.
And other programs that we've had that later on, for some reason, they're non-existent now. You know, and I would like to know why. Why not? You know, the initial cost of this program is going to be expensive, but I'm not talking about just having it for a year or two. I'm talking about for the long run as well. Will we be able to fund it? And then the necessity. I know that if you're in a major city, which we need to do the comparison, I can understand if you're in LA, Chicago, New York, in those huge cities as compared to us, do we really need it? I would like to have a history of the past when having the body camera would have made a difference. Give us some statistics on that as well.
Sure.
We can work on that
Yeah.
in the study session,
Yeah.
Councilman. It's okay. Yes. Go ahead, Councilman.
Maybe I wasn't listening then.
Well, no, well, I don't know.
I don't know.
That's
but-
not for me to say, but when the chief of police makes a comment, what your wishes are. Well,
No.
Chief, you're putting the burden back on us when you've already stood there and recommended this to us. And we went ahead and told the city manager to proceed with telling the federal government that we will accept their grant. And then it came back because of the shutdown of the federal government, that it came back at a higher partnership on our part to this, and we agreed with this. All right. Is that correct, Dr. Felix?
Yes, it is.
So, please don't say what your wishes are, Chief. You made a recommendation, we accepted the recommendation, and we told the city manager that he's authorized to sign that agreement.
Right.
So, that's where we stand right now.
Okay.
Now, when you make a statement like that, we're going back like if we've never talked about this issue before, and we have talked about this issue.
Yeah, we given a presentation, detailed presentation about body
Right.
cameras, and that's when you guys approved it
Right.
to begin with. So, but at the end of the day, if Mayor and Council wants to turn around the program, I mean, it's totally up to you. But we're going full speed with it. I can
Well,
tell you
here's
right
a
now.
big factor, Chief, and this is the deal. you know, the budget, the budget that we just went through was, I think, intense. To some degree, it was very intense.
Right.
With certain things that we had to do. And that was a factor for at least for me, to revisit that and say, wow, do we really need it at this time? And I understand that we've gone through that process. But that doesn't mean it's over, especially if we have another opportunity to bring it back up again. And that's why I brought it back up.
Sure.
Is it really what we need? Because you're very much aware of what we went through with the budget.
Very.
Exactly, very. So then we really have to look at that until we make that decision. So our decision isn't final until we make that decision. And that's why I brought it up. So that we don't say later on, well, you know, we could have done this. Well, that's why I brought it up.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Let me just bring it to a closure here. It's just, we told the city manager to tell the federal government that we want to participate in this grant, that we will participate, and if they will give us funding for it. And we all agreed. And you're correct, Councilman Rojas. We can bring up any councilman can bring up whatever they want when they want. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't want to go back and regurgitate what we've talked about and then go back and have to tell the federal government where they didn't give the money to another city or town, that all of a sudden they gave it to us and somebody was deprived of it, and now we're going back after we made a commitment and told the city manager, make a commitment on our part that we will fund this, and now go back and say, we're not going to fund it. I just don't think that's solid policy making, because when we need something and we authorize you, they're going to tell us, oh, this is the city that doesn't know how to make, and just throw it aside like that when we need funding.
They better not say that.
Well, but that's all, Mayor.
Yes.
I think if you want to put it on the agenda, but we
well-
have discussed it. We all agreed. All 7 of us agreed.
Yes.
And I just don't want to get into a system or of regurgitating something. If there's a problem within the force, let them go to the chief of police or let them go to the city manager.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it on the agenda just because it's already budgeted. It's already in the budget, you know.
It is?
What I would put in the agenda, what I was discussing, I mentioned was a study session just so that we can get, maybe if we didn't get enough
Yeah,
information
it's just further
on it.
conversation.
Yeah, but I
That
mean,
doesn't mean that we have to change our policy, you know, and our procedures.
Yeah.
No,
It's
I
just that,
agree with the policy,
you know,
because I want to see the policy on the implementation. When do they wear the body cameras? How do they wear them? Does it meet the legal ramifications? Or do we have a legal policy to defend us in case we get sued? That's what I want to see, have a public discussion on the policy.
Well, Chief, when are you gonna have that for Dr. Varona and the mayor and the council?
Probably.
No, how about mayor and council?
Well, how about the mayor? Did I say that?
Who's that?
Did I mess up on that?
No, you're fine, you're okay.
How about the mayor and
Probably,
the council
later-
and
No later than late next week. Actually, I need to get together with Mr. Massey, and so he can look at it with his legal interpretation and make sure that that everything is in the up and up. But yeah, it is a 5-year fiscal commitment. I'm not going to say no.
Yeah, it's a
It
5-year.
is expensive. However, we're you know, in now the day and age after, you know, post Ferguson, everything has changed in policing. We're trying to be as transparent as possible to our officers and the community.
Councilman Bojorquez.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. During the presentation, I asked if the body cameras would become a mandate for all police officers in the U.S., and I think you said yes, right?
Well, it's going that way, Councilman. It's going that way. That's the best
So-
practice.
Just by hearing the dialogue, you know, discussion, if we turn it down, now will we have the opportunity to get those body cameras again? Will the federal government turn us down? You know,
Yeah,
if we apply
that
for
could happen. That's what Councilman Varona said.
And I'll give you a little bit of history there. Back in 2015, we had the funding for body cameras back when I believe Shane Dilly was the city manager. and we were in the verge of pulling the trigger per se, and we didn't go through with it. But I think we had in excess of $400,000 to fund those cameras, and it got left behind, and now 4 years later, here we are again, and I think we're moving at full speed ahead. We were lucky enough to get granted that grant that only two agencies in the state were awarded, us being one of them, and so we're moving full speed ahead with it, and we're 2 weeks away from putting on a. Where's Lieutenant? When's Exxon coming down, Lieutenant?
Actually, we started last week, so we should be going live hopefully tomorrow.
And that policy should be in place here by no later than next week.
Perfect. Chief, thank you very much. Did you want to say something?
Yes, and by live I mean trial.
Right.
Okay.
It's a trial basis. How long are we going to do it for, Lieutenant?
30 days.
30 days.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. And thank you also, Mr. Varona, Councilman Varona.
Got your service.
Okay, is there anybody else? Mr. Messi, I think we're okay with the public hearing?
To close the public hearing?
Yes. Okay. All right, so item number 4, orders. A, consideration possible action of order 2019-07-036.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Councilman Varona?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Felix, Mrs. Perales, and Mr. Kissinger, thank you very much for all of the hours that you helped us and the back and forth that we did on the budget, the ideas that you surfaced to us, how well the three of you did to make sure that the mayor and council were prepared on these budgets, the volumes of paper that you gave us so we could be well prepared, and the changes and the back and forth that we did. We want to thank the three of you very much for working as a team and preparing us for that. I also want to thank, and I want the public to know that I'm very appreciative of Mayor Garino for being transparent with this budget. This is my 3rd year on the council. It's been the most transparent that I have seen it. We have got an opportunity to dialogue all of it. Everybody listened to everybody's comments, and I appreciate that transparency of everybody having an opportunity to speak and make suggestions on the budget itself. I think it's a good budget. It's not something that we still have to watch our revenues, our sales tax revenues as we come in. But I would hope, as Dr. Felix and your team, that those vehicles, those capital outlay vehicles that we ordered, that they would be ordered immediately and not wait until 2 weeks before the end of the budget or 30 days before the end of the budget to start ordering things, because you tell us that you need something, and then all of a sudden, for 11 months, it's not important, and all of a sudden, on the last month, it becomes important. If it's important now, it should be important tomorrow morning that we get these vehicles to make sure that our community is safe. The other thing that I do want to say, another concern that I have, Mayor, is on this employee benefit trust. They do a wonderful job in the wellness of our employees, just a fabulous job to keep our employees healthy. The only thing I do want to, the thing that I do disagree with is when we have to borrow from a potential pot of money when we know that our health increase is 15% and they take out money to lower the rate to 7%. Okay, I just don't agree with it. I don't think that's a good business practice, because if and when it ever comes out that we do have serious illnesses with our employees and we have a lot to pay out, that could come back to jeopardize us, because we're the ones that are going to have, the 7 here have to provide the money to make up the money for that. So there needs to be some discussion on that, Mayor. And I'm
Dr.
really-
Barone, can I interject that? Do you have a solution for that, or would you be willing to offer a solution for that? Do you have something in mind?
Well,
Because I know you've addressed it several times.
My only solution is the next comment that I was going to make. It's not, I think that the 5 people that are on this committee are extremely competent individuals, hardworking. When I've gone to the meetings, they've always been well prepared. They're articulate, they express their thoughts well, and they have a strong staff that's there from outside Nogales that comes and helps them. The only thing that I would just suggest, Mayor, is that I just don't like that the committee appoints themselves to the committee. I think that the committee should be appointed by the mayor with approval from the council. So it can be a diverse committee on that.
Can I interject again? How did they get started?
That I don't.
Yeah, no.
That would be
It used to
another-
be, that the mayor was,
Yeah.
matter of fact, I don't know when it changed. Is somebody here that could, yes, Junior, thank you.
And I'll provide how I obtained my position on the board. There was an announcement made from the trust asking employees if anyone was interested in the position, and you had to provide a letter of interest and kind of state your qualifications to hold the position. And then they interviewed us and asked us
Who
our
interviewed?
background. The trust, the board.
Or the board?
And then from there, they made the selection of the individual who would obtain the position that was vacant.
So they did, was there, but before the mayor was the chair, see or no? Or-
No, I don't know, because the previous chair, I remember, was Octavio Gradillas.
Gradia?
So because I had applied for a position previously.
Yes, you're
and-
correct, yeah, but
yeah.
I was on the board.
But you were on the board,
I was on
yeah.
the board and Octavio Gradias was the
The
chair,
chair,
yes,
uh-huh.
correct. You're
And
correct.
I had applied previously and then was not awarded the position, and then I reapplied again, and then that time I did obtain it.
Okay,
So that's been the process, as far as I can remember, is that you show an interest in the position
and then,
and provide your qualifications.
all right.
I
Councilman?
was reading some of the past minutes back in 1984 when this started up and everything. And we used to have people on the committee who were from the business community also. I don't think it should just be exclusive. We should, get some help from the outside, the people with business backgrounds and everything, to help to make sure that it becomes solid and it takes care of itself. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
You know, and also on this item, I also want to make a comment on this. I want to thank staff, Jeanette, you. I know I gave you a hard time, but we were successful. We were successful, and John, you too, Mr. Felix, you guys, you did your work, and all the directors also did their work, and members of the city council. You were patient. You were patient because it took us 3 days. We spent here from the morning till the late afternoon trying to get this done, and then we weren't able to get it done, and I still worked Saturday and Sunday to bring it back to the members of the city council on Monday, so that we could accomplish this budget. It was a tough one, and some decisions were made that nobody would like to be sitting up here doing them. And I know a lot of you would like to be up here doing it because you hurt feelings, but things get better. You have to always think about doing better and the city doing better. So we expect that the city does better, and we expect that this body that sits on this dais is I think this is one of the best councils I've been in since I've been in politics, and very conscious about the budget, very conscious about everything we do for the city of Nogales. So I see nothing but good. So there might have been some things that we did that are not comfortable, and some people might not feel comfortable with it, but that's why we get elected, to make those decisions and to do the best thing we can, the best we can do for the community. So I want to thank the members of the city council. You guys work very hard, and all staff, and John's hiding behind the podium back there because he's afraid I'm going to call him. But no, I'll never, no, but you guys did a great job. Thank you very much on this. So, should we, vote on this?
A roll call, I
Roll call
request, Mayor,
vote.
please.
Kathy?
Second, Darrell, you're second.
We'll start with Victor.
Mr. Pajota,
Aye.
Mr. Hennessy,
Aye.
Mr. Morona,
Aye.
Mr. Maldonado,
Aye.
Mr. Rojo,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mayor Molina.
Aye. Thank you very much. Number B, consideration possible action of order 2019-07-037.
So move, Mayor.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
Mayor, there was just some confusion if Mrs. Perales can elaborate about this.
Yes.
So the Auditor General requires that elected officials vote on a Chief Fiscal Officer to be able to sign the annual report that is submitted. It's an annual expenditure limitation report. So they want to see through council action who is designated to sign the report. It's just a housekeeping. And we're required to submit the information by July 31st. That's just-
Councilor,
Jim, what is the chief fiscal officer? Not the chief financial officer, what is the chief, what are his duties or what does he represent?
Again, it's just to indicate who will sign the annual expenditure limitation report when it's submitted after our audit is performed. That report is prepared by the auditors and is signed, I'm the one that signs it.
And that's the only function under that
Yes.
title?
So when I go to their website, I have to fill out the information and then I have to attach the council order showing that I was appointed as the individual to sign the report.
And after you're appointed, after you sign, the deal's over, that?
Yes, and then we would have to do the same thing
Same next year?
next year. It's just a housekeeping item. There's
she's
no.
gonna sign your $25 check.
I'm still thinking what it is.
And that's the wording they have on the website is Chief Fiscal Officer.
Okay?
Call for the question.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Order number C, consideration possible action of order 2019-07-038.
So move, Mayor.
Second.
Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilman Varona?
I noticed that in the original, there's a blank that was left here, and then this was presented to us right now.
Yes.
Would it be fair that we read this in the public? I would like it read so that the public knows what we're going to be voting.
Could you read it for me?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll be happy to do that. And, Mr. Mayor, if I can also be heard, this explanation of the genesis of this specific order, of course, I drafted the draft order just to, have a motion to possibly be made with then the person who moves that order can designate the individual to be appointed. But discussing this with the mayor and discussing this with Mr. Kissinger, it came to my attention that the mayor intended to appoint Mr. Kissinger as the acting city manager. But again, and I think this is a kind of a very straightforward proposition that Mr. Kissinger is the deputy city manager, and it needs to be very, very clear in this order that he's going to continue to be deputy city manager with all the rights and privileges, including that of a classified employee, and he's simply assuming the role of acting city manager on a temporary basis. And then when that appointment ends, he goes back seamlessly to being deputy city manager. I tried to put language in there as clear as possible, but I also put language in here that says staff is authorized to take such additional actions necessary. Mr. Kissinger wanted to run this language by his own attorney, and so there may be an additional wordsmithing. I think the intent here is very, very clear. I think, you know, any court seeing this would understand exactly what's going on, which is as I explained it. And so if that is the motion that passes today, then that is the effect of the order.
I just want to make sure, one, I concur with the mayor's appointment, and two, I want to make sure that the public understands that this is a month-to-month appointment, not to exceed 6 months, and that he retains all of his merit or classified rights and privileges during this time. And when we select the city manager, he seamlessly, is quote unquote, you say, Mr. Massey, will return to become deputy city manager. Or if by chance we are thinking things aren't going the right way with him, we can seamlessly ask him to return back there and we can appoint somebody else.
Correct. At any council meeting, you can shorten his terms. As council member Verona pointed out, the charter is very clear. It's month to month, maximum of 6 months. In other words, there's no property interest in this position, no due process rights to that extent, but his due process rights would continue with respect to being deputy city manager.
But he carries the full authority of a city manager during this appointment as an acting city manager.
Correct. And that's what also the charter makes that very clear.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Councilman Hudson.
Mr. Massey, does the city council have to appoint him every 30 days, or it's just accepted?
I think with this language, it uses the language right out of the charter. I don't think it's necessary to put it back on their agenda every month for an affirmative vote, but just remember, anytime anybody wants to put it on the agenda to have a vote, that is absolutely absolutely consistent with the charter. So at any time that vote could be had, but it's my opinion that it's not necessary for him to continue in that position for up to a maximum of 6 months. And the 6 months would start when Dr. Felix's resignation is effective, so that would be August 3rd. Okay. And that's and the order makes clear that the appointment is effective as of August 3rd.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Mr. Massey, what would happen in case we go to the extreme and at 6 months we still haven't found a city manager?
Well, at the end,
do we bring him back something like this?
Vice Mayor, Maldonado, Mayor, council members, at the end of 6 months, automatically this term is going to end. By operation of law, without any other vote from the city council, it will end. So my recommendation will obviously be for council to stay on top of that 6 month deadline, and staff will be on top of that 6 month deadline. And if we are approaching that 6 month deadline, then we may come back with another order like this, that on the expiration of Mr. Kissinger's 6 month, another person would be designated as necessary to take effect, you know, on 6 months plus day one, say. And so yes, that is something that we need to keep in mind.
Vice Mayor, just so you know that I've been through two opportunities to appoint a city manager in interviews, and I know you guys didn't do that. You guys appointed without going through interviews in the past administration, and I'm confident that the minute we put this out, we'll have somebody apply for the job. Yes, I'm very confident. I know it's been a task for the city attorney's position. City attorneys are harder to come by when it comes for a municipality, but city managers are a breed of their own. They go to school to become city managers. There's city managers all over the place that can apply for this position. We'll have people applying for it. What we need to do is we need to make sure we hire the right person for this community. So I myself, I don't foresee going 6 months on this. Honestly, I don't foresee. We just have to make sure the human resources puts it out in the right direction and what we need, as a city manager for a border community like Nogales. I had a long conversation with Deputy City Manager Kissinger about this, and he himself really wasn't. He doesn't want it. Honestly, he doesn't want to be appointed. But I'm asking him to do it for continuity of the city and the council, and I assured him that we would have a city manager as soon as possible. So we're not going to stop on this. We're going to work hard, and this is a very good community. Somebody will want to come to Nogales, and I honestly believe that the person that gets selected for the position of city manager will be the one that's going to help us grow economically and grow as a government and as a community. So let's hope for that and let's work hard as a council. Councilman Rojas, you were going to say something?
Yes, Mayor. Mr. Kissinger, are you working on the retreat? Are you working on the retreat?
Very important.
Yes.
I concur. I'll be there.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I was gonna say that. Will you be at the retreat?
Are you sure?
Okay.
Mayor, in
Yes.
fairness though, we also gave Dr. Felix an opportunity to take the job
Yes.
once a month, and he turned it down.
Yes.
So then we went to, so we did include Dr. Felix in the decision making.
And Councilman Rojas, I've talked to Mr. Kissinger about the retreat. He's preparing. Yes.
He's on?
He's on.
He's in?
He's in like Clint.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes. And he'll be there, and believe me, the retreat's going to be good. The way I look at it at the retreat, the one you had in the previous administration, there's a lot there that we have to continue with. And you guys were there. A lot of the decisions made on the retreat were made by you, the members of the council. So the three of us that weren't there, Councilman Bojorquez, Councilwoman, and myself, we want to be part of that continuation. We want to continue on that. So basically, we're following through with what you started and what we all have to complete. So the retreat is going to be basically us and with the persons doing the presentation and moderating on the retreat. And Mr. Kissinger is up to par on that. He's on that.
And that's still on Monday the 19th?
Yes, sir. That's if you want to, unless you want to change the date.
No.
No, I'm just no, I just threw
Mayor.
that out there for some.
Mayor, you'll do it for
I'll
me?
do it for you. Hey, I figured I'll throw that in to see if it works.
right.
No. That's so. This I need to ask one more question, Mr. Kissinger. Could you please, before we vote on this, will you take this?
Mr. Mayor,
Is this written?
I saw the documentation that Mike handed me this morning. I immediately emailed it to my lawyer. My lawyer hasn't had a chance to respond to me except at 3:28. I just received an email from him advising me that he will look over the documentation sent by Mr. Massey and answer me Monday morning on if there should be any changes or what I should do. So I think with the way Mr. Massey worded the order, I think that we're in a good place that we can regroup on Monday, and if there's any changes or anything, we'll bring it up then. But as far as me doing my job, I've been doing it for 38 years, and I plan on doing it, tomorrow and the next day. So
Yeah, but acting. I'm talking about the
I'll
acting
keep on
position.
doing what I'm doing, Mr. Mayor, and so if we can leave it at that, we'll see what my attorney says on Monday, and I'm just asking that you afford me that opportunity to have him review Mr. Massey's order.
Okay.
And Mr. Massey, you can wordsmith it yourself without any further approval or
Well, as long as I mean, I think the intent is very, very clear.
Yes.
We want to meet the reasonable condition that Mr. Kissinger is presenting with us, that yes, he can continue as deputy city manager. No one is saying otherwise. And it's just a process, I think, of making sure that that intent is very, very clear.
But if we were to vote, Mr. Messi, right now in favor of Mr., and there were tweaked a little bit here, would there be a problem?
No, I think I could do that at my authority to
Okay.
say, would I anticipate maybe like a service agreement or something like that? Of course, the service agreement would have to be 100% consistent with this order, but that is the intent of everyone, I think, at this point.
I think, Mr. Mayor, also, it's covered by number 3 here, where it's staff is authorized and directed to take such action necessary
Yes.
to give effect to this order.
Right.
So, I mean, it's
That's-
pretty much covered there.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. All right, then, I call for the question.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Just a point of clarification, just so there's no confusion. When Mr. Kissinger assumes the role of acting city manager, tell me about his compensation.
That's not being addressed in this order, so
That'll come Monday.
Well, but I just so that there's clarity, does current city manager have the authority to settle all of that up with the city attorney, so we don't have to get back into this again?
I think since that's,
Staff.
yeah, I think that's outside of the authority of this order, Councilman Varone. So I think we would be probably wise to bring that back to council on the next meeting, the first regular meeting in August.
So we have an understanding of that. Okay, so we'll wait
So-
for the recommendation.
So we can vote on this right now.
I believe it's appropriate
Okay,
and it's in
that's
order
all
to
I wanna
vote on.
know.
Yes.
Okay, because I don't want to bring it back on August the,
Right.
no, what date? August the 7th, 6th?
Request a roll call vote, Mayor.
Okay. We'll start with Mr. McCoy, because he's a nice guy.
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye. Thank you very much, members of the city council. Okay, 5, communications, update Little League tournament, Mr. Maldonado.
How much time do I have?
It all depends, do you want to eat lunch, dinner, or what? No, go ahead.
I had my first meal at 5, and I don't know when my second meal comes, so. No, basically, you know, it's a update on the tournament. I've got 4 of the 8 teams already in town. It's basically the West Regional tournament done at Flesher Park, which is the right sizing intermediate 50-70. And back in your last term, Mayor, you really supported us, and we basically turned those softball fields into baseball fields. You know, I've got Alaska coming from over 3,700 miles, Hawaii from over 2,800 miles. Nogales went to this tournament back in 2013. They went to Irvine, and back then, our cost was probably between $12,000 and $14,000 spent just for the kids, because it's basically hotels, meals, travel, and so that's basically a big saving just for the kids. Now include what it saves the families, because let me tell you, when they went to the World Series up in Livermore, there was at least 80 to 120 people from Nogales that joined them. You know, I recall police officer Mr. 50 Andrade was one of the main fans there, and you know, it's a big expense if we don't host these. And you know, hosting these tournaments, you know, we have we have people, 95 rooms for at least 8 to 10 nights. You're looking at 760 to 950 rooms in 10 days. You're looking at 120, give or take, well, counting the local team, 120 between players, coaches, and managers, and that's excluding the local team, having to go eat somewhere on a daily basis. We have 7 teams, spending, shopping, spending their money in our city. I know the chief is part of our Little League board, and safety is our priority to offer these teams to come down. When these tournaments come down to a place like Nogales, the border, yes, it's always a concern. But we've given all these teams the security. The Border Patrol supports me and gives them a tour, gives the kids an education on what the border is about, what it is, they look for. Let me tell you, just from speaking with coaches, players, and all that, sometimes they really think it's only Mexicans. No, it's other countries. It's not just drugs. It's other paraphernalia, money laundering, weapons, and there's human trafficking and all that. They get a big education out of this. And, we try to cater, and that's one of the biggest things that I like to do is, if we don't cater, we'll lose it. And we'll lose this big, I think it's something big that we've had for the city. We'll lose this big opportunity. Produce season right now is downtime. It's our downtime, and this is one of the biggest incoming, tax revenue for the city. The local businesses and everybody that I think is supported by Little League. Little League, Western Regional, which is San Bernardino, women's sports are very, very high in supporting Nogales. But us as a city, we got to show them that we want them. That's why, I push Mayor on canopies, everything that I try to do with sports and all that, and, to make the people that come here feel at home. Feel at home. Tomorrow we have the parade, at 3 o'clock. Will be the same route that we took for the 4th of July, coming back from the downtown stores all the way down Morley. We have opening ceremony at 4 o'clock at Fletcher Field, and then we have the opening game. Great game. Arizona versus the host team. And it's luck of the draw. Luck of the draw. Arizona this year is hosted for the first time. We have 2 teams from our district. It's Arizona state champ is Cerro Vista. They went up to Tucson. They beat another 4 teams that are from throughout the state and came back as champions. I'm very proud to be part of the district and to have 2 teams in a regional. That's very rare, very rare. But we'll have the game at 6 p.m. We'll have all 8 teams there because they'll go through the opening ceremony. We get 9 umpires that are selected throughout the West Regional. We got 2 from Washington, 1 from Oregon, 2 from Arizona, and 4 from California. California is divided between the north and the south. They do sectionals, so because it's just a big state, so they divide it. We got 9 umpires. We got they get evaluated, so the Western Regional sends an evaluator. Our district has an umpire in charge. Then we have our district administrator, and then the local board. Our board consists of 9 people, and it's just for the kids. That's our mentality. Everything's for the kids. We try to have the kids go to the border, enjoy, look at what they're visiting, you know. Today, I've got one team, Alaska arrived on Monday, because they were expecting the Phoenix weather. And yesterday I talked to them, I had a meeting with them and said, wow, we thought it'd be 115. No, you know, we're higher elevation and everything. I explained it to them. Today, Parks and Rec allowed us. They're gonna practice at night. That's from 7 to 9. Why? They never played under lights. Their sun goes down at midnight. So, you know, it's something different for these kids. Something different, but it's fun. Please, Mayor and Council, the whole public, come and support this tournament. Because really, if the city, don't support it, we will lose it. And we will lose a lot of revenues for the city and a lot of really, it's a great activity for the kids. Let me tell you, I played ball, and everybody that plays ball, it's a lot, 10 times or more, a lot more comfortable sleeping at home and not having to go out, you know, into a high-level regional tournament and playing it at home. The winner from here goes to the World Series, and Little League rules is once you win the regional and advance to the World Series, they take the tab. Little League takes the tab. They'll pay the flight, they'll pay the housing, they'll pay for everything for the team. But still, after that, you have the expense for the families. But you know, the city and all the businesses are very supportive of these players, and not just this division, all our divisions. We got right now. We had our seniors played up in Payson, and unfortunately they lost in the championship. That was 15 and 16-year-olds. We have our 9 and 11 playing up in Payson. They won last night. We have our 8 and 10s playing in Mesa. And then we have our juniors right now playing state in Sierra Vista. So it's a baseball city, you know, and all the kids enjoy it. There's summer, and it's fun baseball because there's really no, you know, there's no stress of having, you know, school. When you're playing at school, you got to keep your grades up. Here, it's enjoying it with the friends. But I want to thank you, Mayor and Council, for giving me the opportunity, and I hope everybody joins us at the park starting tomorrow at 4 p.m. and the parade at 3. Thank you.
Are you going to have Councilman Barona and
He will not be here.
pitch the ball?
I won't be here.
Oh, you won't be here. Okay. Councilman Hanesian?
The mayor was supposed to do that.
Tira
That's
patacera.
only if you're the catcher.
I'll do the catching,
Okay, I'll pitch it then.
Mayor, and I know you've met him. This year we're honoring, basically, you recall Mr. Brooks Bishop.
Yes.
He lost his term at the district administration, but he is one of the main guys why this tournament came
Yes.
down. Because when
He's a good man.
when he found out it was available, I recall he called, text Ricky, text me, and we just said go for it. We called you, and we said go for it, and he
I think it was the
bent
best move.
over backwards to get it to
Yeah, I
us.
think it was the best
Yeah.
move the city did. We,
Yes.
we used the funds to upgrade those fields and
Yes.
everything. I think it's great. Good job. Thank you very much.
And the other thing, you know, Councilman Rojas asked me earlier, you know, Mr. Felix is also, we've still been working, we're trying to get a Diamondbacks grant for more fields and stuff like that. And, you know, it's all for the kids.
Yeah, work on it.
Thank you.
Were you gonna say something?
I'm just going to congratulate Councilman Denano for all his volunteer work on bringing this tournament all of these years. Unfortunately, this year, Councilman Rojas and myself have to attend an educational conference, so we won't be here for that, but we wish you the best of luck on that for your success.
Where are you going?
I'm going to an educational conference.
Where at? Where is?
Call for the question.
You almost did. There's no vote on this one.
No vote.
Oh, no, okay.
But Well, we'll call for the question anyway. That's a good one. We'll leave it at that then. All right. Number 6, discussion possible action regarding a job announcement and job description of city manager. I placed this on the agenda. Mr. Kissinger, please.
So, Mr. Mayor, on the search for the city manager, staff prepared for you our last job announcement, which is in your packet, and the job description. I know that Mayor and Council want to hit the ground running starting tomorrow with this.
Yes.
So there's a few questions that need to be answered. If we go to the job announcement in your packet, you'll see there's a opportunity for you all to put in a salary range. Maybe you might want to have a discussion on the salary range, put it in there. And then there's a closing date. If you wanted to put it out before 60 days or 30 days or what have you, here's an opportunity to do it. And I'm assuming you want us to post it. At least the mayor has indicated to me he wants it posted tomorrow.
Yes.
Then the other item that you might want to consider, as you did with the city attorney, if you want to make any modifications to the job description. I know there was concerns about the city attorney for the years of service or years of experience. It was 7, the same as indicated in the city manager's job description under minimum qualifications. This might be an opportunity for some action on the council if that needs to be modification. But staff's ready to take notes on your desires and move forward to find you the best qualified candidates for your selection.
Thank you. And have you done a little bit of research? Is it an average of 7 years for other cities, or 5 years, or what is it? What do you have out there?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know the answer.
You don't know?
I haven't done that research.
Human resources? You don't know that either? Okay.
I haven't checked.
Yes, go ahead.
I think, Mr. Mayor, it all depends on the city. I remember one time when we did it, I mean, some cities had 10 years, 12 years experience, right? So I think the least that we found was 7 years. That's why 7 years was put in there.
Yeah, because you have to, the reason I say is because Nogales being the model port of the state of Arizona, and being a port and by the border, you know, it's interesting, the selection that we need to look at, and that's why it's so important when we go through the interview process of the candidates that they have that intent, knowledge of the port.
So remember, this is the job description.
Yes.
Assuming that you were to change the 7, let's say, to 5 years, and you have applicants, of course, you still remain the ones in charge to see, you know, who you're going to select. Let's say you get one applicant only has 5 years of experience, and you have one that has 10. Well, that's something that you all can decide. But the opposite sometimes is where we struggle. If you have 7 and you have an applicant that comes in and only has 5 years experience, that's where you might struggle. So I think it's a good topic for you all to have a good, healthy discussion over and give staff direction which way you want to go.
Members of the city council, yes, Councilman Lopez.
Will the mayor and council be doing the interviews?
Yes, we will do the interviews. Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Kissinger, on the corrections need to be made on the 55 million operating budget and 75 million capital budget.
Yes, we'll bring that up to today's numbers. But yes, we'll take care of that.
Thank you. Mayor, would it be appropriate for me to offer just my comments? And
Yes, go ahead.
thank you. On the 7 years for this position, I think that the 7 years is appropriate. Where I have a difficult time is where it says right there, increasingly responsible management and administrative experience in local or county government. See, right there, we've boxed ourselves in to just people who are local and county. And I kind of want to go outside this time to see what we get, view the applications, and what I would like it for it to say is that local, county, or state government, and also I like where it says over there the degrees that's being offered. It says you're giving preference for a master's in public administration and a international certified manager's credentials. But I'd also like to put on there that we would give preferential treatment to a master's in public administration and a master's in business administration. I think we need to start looking for people who have a business background. You don't have to be working for the government all the time to be successful to coming over here. So I would like to also see that there's a lot of good administrators that we can find in the nonprofit world, and there's a lot of good administrators. Nonprofit, there's a degree at all the universities to be an executive in nonprofit. They teach you all of these things. And also, people who have a business background. We might find a CEO who wants to come down to Nogales that brings us a strong background, especially in finances, that can help us. We're constantly saying that we need to do something with our budget, and we can't every year be saying it's the sales tax and not make another move, because we're hesitant to make a move, and we're going to, for the next 5 years, all we're going to be doing is cutting, and cutting. Well, if we're constantly going to be cutting, eventually we're going to have to not have enough to cut, that we're going to have to cut employees. So we need somebody to really help us that's going to be a visionary person. I don't want it limited. My suggestion is, I don't want to be in this box of government, just a city manager and all of that. If they have, I like to see us going out into the nonprofit world and the business world and see what we can attract right there. And look at those applications. Tell them that we're interested in them. Now, if we want to find people who are serious about coming down here, that want to look at this, especially an individual who might be an assistant chief executive officer, or might be a deputy, let's say, for the city of Tempe, that might want to come down here and say, hey, I want to try out being a manager and see how it works out. I want to continue to have this relocation package to out-of-state candidates, and severance pays are negotiable. But if we're going to go through all of this work and try to nickel and dime people and try to say, woe is me, we're a poor city, we can't do anything, we're not going to get good candidates. So if we really want to, just like we said with the city attorney, and even with the city attorney, when we went up for 130,000 to 150,000, we weren't very successful. Nothing to say against you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Just talking about applications.
Yes.
I have confidence in you, Mr.
It has nothing to do with you, Mr. Mayor. But I'm suggesting here, Mayor, that if we're really interested in it, I would suggest that we offer a salary of 150,000 to 180,000, depending on the experience and where they're coming from. That we will negotiate, but at least so they can see, hey, Nogales, it might be worth moving here for that salary and putting my skills to them. And I think we can get a bigger pool if we include the business and the nonprofit executives on this, so too. And the other thing is, Mrs. Fuentes, you have to be the one that's responsible for all of this. All of it. Not an assistant that says there to email the assistant. We want you to be responsible for everything that has to do with this. We're holding you accountable, and we want anybody who applies that they are going to go through them. So none of the packages will be open until we decide to meet, and then we'll open them as a group together. And I do agree that it should be us who does the interviewing, because that's the only person that we hire.
Yeah.
And I think it should be us. And I think that's all I have right now at this time here.
Councilman Rojas?
So, Dr. Varona, you're expanding the parameters.
Yes, sir.
That's what you want.
Yes, sir.
Would it even go into the educational world as well?
Yeah, it would, because it
I'm
is
just-
a local, yeah, it is. If
Right.
you have a superintendent that wants to apply, let him apply. Anybody who has administrative, 5 to 7 years, progressive administrative, let them apply and see. But we'll make the final decision here how they compete. I think we should take as many applicants and let us judge
I concur
who
with that.
has the fit for us.
Yeah.
Councilman Honacier?
Mr. Mayor, I think last time we put it out was 7 years experience as a city manager. I mean, it's too rough for us to start with somebody from the educational series as a superintendent, to start them with the idea of what happens in the city, county, state, federal government. We need somebody that's had experience, that has been dealing in these things. I think it's not going to be up to us to educate the person for the next 3 years until he gets a hold of the situation. So, you know, I think that point about it being 7 years experience as a city manager, that's what it should specify, and that's what it should be. I'm really not interested in getting somebody that is retailing. I'm not interested in getting somebody from the education theory, a principal or whatever. Then we have to, it's gonna end up us teaching this person, and then when he gets taught, basically he'll move away, because then he's got the education that he needs. So, I don't know how far they want to expand it, but I think it's gotta be narrowed down to 7 years having the experience of being a city manager, right? And preferably in Arizona, because then you would know about the Congress people, you'd know about going to Phoenix. I mean, here, I don't want to be dealing with somebody that we're taking him to Phoenix to introduce him to the people there. Then we're going to Washington to introduce him to the people there. I think it's somebody that has to have that experience so he can go ahead and handle it without depending on us for everything. You know, so I think that 7 years, it should specify specifically. If he's a psychiatrist, that's fine. If he's a psychoanalyst, it's fine. All those things are fine and dandy as extras. But basically, 7 years experience in what we need. We don't need somebody in the education environment. We need somebody that has been a manager, not somebody else that's been somewhere else.
I agree with you, Councilman. You know, the city manager is very important to have, and for instance, somebody could have 5 years experience or 6 years experience as city manager, but also was a CEO of a company and stuff.
As long
You
as
know,
he's got the 7 years experience in the city.
yeah, that it has to be, you know, equivalent to or whatever, you know, but it does have to have a city manager experience, you know, and it doesn't have to be municipal experience. It could be county, it could be state, it could be federal, but it has to be, you know, in that field of a manager.
Not federal, right?
Not federal, but I mean, a manager in that position.
You know, it's
And I
still-
agree, you know.
County manager is still acceptable, but I mean, it has to have experience in the city. It has to be, right? I mean, you know, other than that, we're gonna end up trying to, you know, bring this person up to par, and, you know, and it's not gonna be the situation we're looking for. And then as far as the pay schedule, I think 135 to 165 is more than sufficient. I mean, depending on the experience, right? Again, I don't think we're gonna get somebody that's been city manager of New York coming down here, hopefully not anyway, you know, so.
As long as they don't know from Trump travel. Mr. Mayor. Look,
Yes, go ahead.
I don't agree. The people on this diocese have selected people that have come directly from city managers. Somebody just brought up the deal, Mr. Councilman Rojas, could somebody apply from the educational field? And I said, yes, it should be open. But I didn't say that we should hire them, but let them show there and let us discuss that as a group. How many people did you hire that came directly from the city manager group, and 3 years, 2-3 years later, you fired them? So we've gone through all of that. All I'm saying is give a chance to look out at a different area, because there's been a lot of city managers that have come from city managers with everything, and what has happened? They've walked in one door and we scooted them out the other door. So I don't see any problem of going ahead and opening it up to get more applications, look at them, and then let us decide. Maybe a person that's never worked for the government, God forbid that they didn't work for the government, and they have a strong financial background in banking, and they have run the bank, and they've been involved progressively as a supervisor. Why can't we look at that person? Why are we continuously, year after year with this, just narrowing ourselves to a certain parameter? I just don't see it. Now, if this person, whoever applies, and we don't think doesn't fit within the confines of being successful or working with us, well, that's fine. Then we can talk about that in public and say, hey, this person doesn't fit in with what we want. Somebody that has a little bit more experience dealing with a larger span of control than what's being offered. But I don't see us having this narrow, concentrated, focused vision on just a person that's been a city manager, because they come and they go. All right. I'm looking for a person that has strong qualifications, especially in finances. That's where we need help right now, is in finances.
Yes, Mr. Kissinger, how long have we had these, since the inception of the city manager form of government?
The
These
job announcement,
qualifications?
sir?
No, the qualifications.
No, these qualifications.
When were they revised?
Yeah, these were revised in 2010, December of 2000.
2010.
Yes, sir.
And
The job description?
Before that, what was the job description? Do you remember? No?
I can't remember. It was probably similar.
Because
I'm
the
assuming
reason
it might have been similar, sir, but I don't know.
But has it always been a person that had municipal government, city manager, or no?
I believe it was government experience, sir.
Government experience. Okay. Yes,
The
Councilman.
best I can remember has always been government experience.
Okay. Go ahead,
Mr.
Councilman.
Mayor, then following Mr. Verona's deal there, should we ask also, why are you moving on? Why are you moving on from where you were? If you were doing so well there, why are you moving on to come to Nogales? I mean, is that a question that would be asked?
During the interview?
I mean, during the interview, are we gonna ask them, why are you, any city manager that moves up or down, whatever it is, I've had city managers from Nogales that always seem to be moving up, right? Even after they left Nogales, so I mean, is it a deal there? Anybody applying then, we have to find out why they leave, even if they were making $2 million a year or they were very good at another position, why they would leave that position to come here? Is that a question that will be asked?
Well,
If that's a
during the
question to be
interview
asked, then
process,
maybe that comes out correct.
That's an
Because
appropriate question.
anybody will ask, anybody city manager going to another position as a city manager will be asked that question. Why are you deciding to come here?
Well, when we
Right.
talk about the questions that we want to ask, we can talk about that then. And that's an appropriate question to ask. I don't have any problem asking.
Anybody else in the council would like, Esther, would you like to say something in reference to this? What are your concerns?
I really think the way it's written is proper. It's, the person's supposed to be knowledgeable of what he's going to be working for. And a 7-year experience, I think it's more than enough. That's what I think.
Councilman Bojorquez, what do you think?
Well, I agree with Councilman Hennessy. If he's got to have a little bit of experience or knowledge of government, city government, and have a little bit of contact with the state congressmen and legislation and all that. And it is very important. I think the 7 years background city government is very important.
The reason you have to remember that this person works for the 7 of us. He's not going to work for one person.
Or she.
He works for the 7 of us. So we all take our opinions into that office, and our concerns into that office that we receive from our constituents. And that's why it's so important to have somebody that, he's not gonna be working for one guy, you know? He's gonna have 7 people that he's gonna have to deal with. That's why it's important that they have an idea of what government is or how governments are run. Because, yes, we can, like Councilman Barona said, yeah, we can have somebody apply with a bunch of knowledge and something else. It doesn't mean he's gonna get the job or she's gonna get the job. You know, it doesn't mean, they can apply. But that's how we prepare the document. Prepare the document, you know, we can open it up. We can open it up, but the thing is that they're gonna have to deal with us in the interview process. And I've been through that several times. It's not easy for somebody sitting right there being interviewed for a city manager position. Yes, Councilman.
Mr. Mayor, and I also think that the person we hire should be a little bit knowledgeable about the border community,
Yes.
because there's a lot of city managers, but they've never been to a border community.
Yes.
They have to have a little bit of knowledge of the culture, the closeness to another country. You know, what we deal here with, especially with the IOI and
Yes.
things like that. He has to have a little bit knowledge about that.
John can,
So,
Get him up to
Mr.
speed on
Mayor,
that.
maybe I can help you guys
Go
move
ahead,
along.
John.
There's a lot of great discussion here and a lot of great questions that you all can ask during your interview. But in order for staff to go out tomorrow, we want to get this published tomorrow because we understand that there's a sense of urgency and the mayor and council want to get this out. You have an action item in front of you. If somebody wants to make a motion that would help staff, we'll go ahead and change update those numbers on the budget. But starting under minimum requirements includes, if somebody wants to make a motion to modify that or change that or anything, that would help staff understand where mayor and council wants to go. And then I've heard 2 different sets of numbers for the salary ranges. Dr. Barona talked about 150 to 180, and Councilman
Grandpa.
yeah, Hanasian said 135 to, was it 160?
160.
160. So I don't know if you want to take these in separate, 3 separate different motions. Might be the best way to do it, address the first
Could you
one
read
first.
as it is right now what the requirements are?
Sure, it says the minimum requirements include 7 years of increasingly responsible management and administrative experience in local or county government, comma, U.S. citizen, resident Nogales,
But
upon
just-
appointment.
What if we just put municipal government instead of local?
We can change it however you guys wish. And then it talks about resident of Nogales upon appointment and a BA / BS in public administration or related field. So, I mean, that's what it says. I mean, any type of motion that if you want to leave it the same, change it.
Well, Mayor,
go ahead.
the only thing I do want to say is right now, Councilman Hanesian made the statement that he doesn't want to have to train anybody to take him up to introduce him to state legislature. But that's the assumption that you're making, that a CEO or an executive has never dealt with state legislatures or the governor's office. I can't place any CEO or nonprofit executive that does not deal with the state legislature or the governor's office the way things are. And there isn't one person, not the president of a university, not a CEO of Raytheon Corporation. They all deal with it. You don't have to worry about it. But you see, we're focused on the narrowness of it. Mr. Mayor, make a motion that the years of increasingly responsible management and administrative experience be 7 years.
So move. Here. Yes. I said, discussion, you want?
Oh,
I
did
don't think-
somebody second?
I seconded it.
Oh, I didn't hear.
Second. We both.
Yeah, we both did.
Oh,
So, Mr. Mayor, just so I'm clear, leave it the way it is.
7, yes.
Leave it the way it is.
Well, if the vote passes.
But is that the entire sentence?
No, I'll read the sentence, the rest of it. I want to get.
Oh, one
these
at a
ones-
time?
Yeah, because this one's,
Okay.
7 is non-controversial.
Got it.
You wanna vote on that?
Yes, sir.
Just
Okay,
on
all
the
in
7?
fa- On 7, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. 7 is.
Motion that increasing responsible management and administrative experience in local, state, county, free enterprise, and nonprofit organizations.
Made a motion, is that?
Motion.
Yeah, I
That's the
second on that too.
Could you repeat that?
Yes, sir. It just said, increasingly responsible management and administrative experience in local, state, county government, free enterprise, and nonprofit organizations. Free enterprise, God forbid somebody from free enterprise get here, huh?
Antifa could come.
Got it.
Hey,
Let me show you
Yes.
the tape.
No.
No. Okay.
And that was second?
Second by the
I
mayor.
seconded.
Call for
That'll
question.
give us a bigger pool. Okay. That
What
could-
we do with that, that's a different
That's
story.
up to us.
I
We make the
just wanna get a
decision
big
at
pool,
At
that's
the
all
end,
I wanna do.
we make the decision,
Then
okay.
we decide.
Okay,
Call for the question, Mayor.
yes, okay. Calls for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
What's wrong with you? The trumpeter of free enterprise is against free enterprise.
Okay, all right, so we go with that.
Oh, I need to-
Okay.
Can we do the salary, sir?
Okay, the salary,
Motion to that the salary range be 150,000 to 180,000. Oh, no, I just put it out there. I mean, the discussion has been wonderful right now.
You're a
I
second.
mean, it's
there's no second, so I guess
Okay.
we'll go over another one. Okay, now,
135 to 160.
I'll second that.
okay. Discussion? I think, okay. 60, 135 to 160, Councilman
Right.
Henderson? Yeah.
Would you agree to 140 to 165?
Yeah, 135
Eh?
to
Dubai.
Councilman Barron, leave him alone. All right. You're going tomorrow on a trip.
Yes.
Relax.
It's in between. The 140 is in between. So don't
No,
worry.
relax. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mayor,
Yes.
not like Councilman Henderson, but for the good of the cause, that we have harmony here, I vote aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, Councilman. Okay, did you hear the salary?
135
Five
to
to
160,
160.
and then, close date.
The close date, I make a motion that from when you, first of all, that Mrs. Fuentes is the lead administrator on this, and that we post for 45 days.
Okay.
45 business days
From tomorrow.
from tomorrow.
Starting
45
tomorrow.
business days.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion on that? No? Hearing none? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for your help on this, and I believe that the job description, we can catch up with that one. We just need this one first, and we can catch up with the job description.
Okay.
And we'll bring back a proposed job description for your approval.
And if
Okay, do we have to vote on the whole thing now? No?
No, I think you've made
This
it.
is-
Oh,
we
yeah,
made it?
that's
Okay.
okay.
Mr. Kissinger?
Yes, sir.
Could also, you and Mrs. Fuentes start preparing us so we can, potential questions, so we don't get them at the last.
But we heard some very excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we, members of the city council, before we go into discussion items, who's going to do the presentation of the compensation study? Okay, can you give me an idea of time? 10 minutes?
10 minutes. Good.
Okay.
5 is good.
I like that one.
5 is good.
I'm gonna time you. The worst thing to do is tell the mayor how much time it's gonna be. Okay? So let's go on, number 7, discussion items. 8, presentation of compensation study.
right, well, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Kay Tilzer. I'm with Public Sector Personnel Consultants. We prepared a salary survey for the city's consideration. The date you see on the slide there is the date I met with the executive leaders to kind of review the information, gather some feedback in preparation for bringing it for your review. So the project scope was limited to salary survey. We didn't look at job classifications or underlying duties, except to the extent that we needed to know what the jobs were in order to do our comparisons in the market. So we prepared some optional updated compensation plans, implementation strategies, and some fiscal impact for your consideration. Survey comparators, so we used some of the survey comparators that were used previously, historical comparators used by the city of Nogales. So on the slide there you see some of your local comparators, those that are in the outerlying areas, some of the towns and cities that are similarly situated to the border. We got San Luis there, and geographically remote. We did request information from Cochise County and Florence and South Tucson. South Tucson, in the 15 years I've been consulting, has never responded to requests, so they did not respond. But we did have responses from the remainder of those comparators you see on the list. So our data collection was, as I said, we analyzed job descriptions, org charts, and budget documents, collected pay plans from those comparator employers, and then matched the jobs based upon the City of Nogales jobs. So we looked at what's the City of Nogales job content, tried to find jobs out in the marketplace at those comparators that were similar to what is performed here at the City of Nogales. We did look for base compensation data only, so we're not considering benefit information, and the data we collected is the salary range midpoint. So we're looking at just the middle of the salary range being offered. We did not collect actual salaries being paid to employees. So it's a salary range, value of the occupation that we're looking at. So this is a sample of the survey data just to kind of show you what that survey looked like. In this case, I used a vanilla flavored secretary. And so you can see where we've collected the data from the comparators for the jobs that are most closely representative of that secretarial duty. We've used the client's midpoint, the City of Nogales midpoint for the salary range, and we've collected the midpoint from the salary ranges for those comparable job classes. Averaged those midpoints and then did a variance to see how far off the City of Nogales is in relation to that prevailing rate, or the average of all of those midpoints. What we found is that of the 82 jobs that we were able to find sufficient market data for to call them a benchmark, in using a threshold of 10% of those prevailing rates, that 90% of the jobs that we surveyed were behind the market by more than 10%. So I'm guessing that's not a surprise. I know that there's been some issues of retention and budget here. Looking at some recommendations in terms of how to approach that, there's a couple things to look at. So we did take a look at what the city's current salary structure was. Didn't find that there'd be anything that we could do to add value to that. It's a structure that we commonly use, 40% wide between the minimum and maximum, so you have lots of in-range opportunity for your employee to come in. They start off at the minimum and they have an opportunity to make up to 40% before they max out. So that's pretty good. Between your salary ranges, you have 2.5%. So you've got a lot of salary ranges, which allows you to position these jobs in relation to the market in one of your existing ranges and try and get within 2.5% of that prevailing rate. A couple cautionary points, and I think that Director Fuentes is already on that, is that there's a couple of ranges at the low end of your structure that I just want to caution you about, that some or all of those ranges will fall below the upcoming minimum wages, and I'm sure you've already experienced some rustling of that. Salary ranges 26 through 93, so we've expanded that a little bit, will be necessary in order to incorporate any of the proposed salary range recommendations. Now, we've got the 93 ranges out there, but not every range will have a job assigned to it. So those are just placeholders to land jobs into as the market starts to move around. So this is just a few of the salary ranges just to kind of show you if you're not familiar with what the city salary structure looks like. The purple is areas where it's the salaries are below the 2019 minimum wage. I'm sure you've already addressed that. And then the blue areas will be portions of those salary ranges that are going to fall below that 2020 minimum wage. So most of the jobs that we have recommended salary ranges for, or some optional salary ranges for your consideration, are going to be at range 34 and above. So it should minimize that potential bringing wages to minimum struggle. So taking our salary survey data, so as I said, we had 82 jobs that we found market data for, averaged those midpoints in order to identify that prevailing rate in the marketplace. Then we looked at how can we assign the city's jobs to a prevailing rate that's as close as possible to that market rate. So we looked at what range has a midpoint as close as possible to the prevailing rate in the marketplace. Then for the jobs that did not have market data, we used the job description and the way that the city currently values those to slot those in around. So for instance, if we have an accountant market data, our junior accountant would be below that market data and the senior accountant would be above that. So we use that to kind of based on change in complexity and our knowledge of these job classes, we slotted around using market data and your current job duties. So here's a couple scenarios. So when we looked at making some recommended salary ranges for the market, we've got some pretty eye-popping numbers out there. So the first column there represents if the city were to adopt a salary policy that says you want to compete at 100% of those prevailing rates. So that means that the city's midpoint is going to be equal to or as close as possible to the prevailing rate in the market midpoint. It's going to cost roughly $650,000 to bring the salaries that fall below the minimum up to the new minimum. Knowing that that's probably pretty rich for any of our clients' blood, 6% of payroll is a pretty steep number. So then we looked at, well, what if we go within 5% of those market numbers? What would be that cost? And so that second column over would be placing your midpoint so that they're 5% below what the prevailing rate is in the marketplace. And that cost would be about 3.46% of your current payroll. So a little bit closer to what most of our clients typically are budgeting, 2 to 3%. And then we ran that same number using 90%. So what we're saying there is if the city were to adopt salary range placements that the midpoint was within 10% of that prevailing rate in the market, now we're looking at about 1.5% of your current payroll.
May I?
You may.
Thank you. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Now, on this compensation study, for you, Dr. Felix, and Mr. Kissinger, and Ms. Peralta, we can't address your whole, it's very intense, but it's out of our price range, okay? But I do just want to make the suggestion that the ones that I'd like to address for this next fiscal year that's coming up is the employees that are below minimum. Who are these employees for us to study? And using the range of the 90%. Because you can tell the 90% falls on our affordability. I think if we would just get that, see what positions there are, and see what the funding would take us for 90% of that, I think we could start preparing ourselves for the budget. We can't grab this whole thing here. It's a good study, but it's just, let's not spend time on something that we can't afford, okay? But I think if we start with the people below the minimum at 90% and use that as a starting point, I think we can show some progress as we approach the month of January and February. We can have a dialogue on just that part of it and see where it takes us from there.
Go ahead.
And that's exactly what we're proposing here is selecting that market competitiveness policy. Where can the city afford to compete? We know where the market is, so that would be certainly a council decision as to where can you afford to compete. And then exactly that, identifying if there's salaries that fall below the new minimum, bring those up. And then if anybody's above the maximum, there was a few salaries that may be above your maximum, we would recommend freezing those until the market catches up. If you're ahead of market, you're ahead of market. Right. And how our clients internalize that, it may mean you still provide provide cost of living, if that's a policy that the city utilizes, or it may mean we recommend you red circle that as 0. They're ahead of market. We want to make sure we treat everybody fairly, and employees who are below the market should catch up so that there's some threshold between those ahead and those below, and it's not wide like that.
That we treat everybody equally like that.
Okay. So salary plan maintenance would be similarly looking at, collecting market data, identifying which jobs fall below the market, being strategic about that, so not giving across the board everything, but just identifying which jobs are below the market, assigning them to a closer, more competitive market range, adjusting the internal alignment, and then identifying any salaries below minimum. And so certainly we have worked with clients to do, let's start at 80% this year and go to 85% next year and 90, so that, because we know we want to close that gap, but we also recognize that there's a price tag associated to that. So that, in a nutshell, is my presentation. Are there any questions?
I don't really have a question. I know it's intense, but I would like to see, Mayor, that the administration comes back with a recommendation on the individuals who are above the minimum, so that we know that we need to freeze them, and the ones who are below the minimum to go ahead and take it at 80, 85, and 95%, or 90 and 95, and see how much that costs us to get the people who are at the bottom at least up as close as we can to the midpoint there. And I think with that, that'll probably be something that we could look at to put into our budget, Mayor, so that we're at least saying, we got this study and we're working on it. We're not going to file it away as the previous study was.
Good. So, hearing nothing from the rest of the council. Thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you.
It was a good study. Thank you.
Thank you very much. B, discussion on annexation. This is from Councilman Lopez.
You threw me off.
That's
there,
fantastic.
man. You really threw me
Oh
off.
my God! What did I do?
I was not waiting for it. Yeah.
No. So, hey, the reason I brought this up is because there's a couple of issues that I'm concerned with. One of them, of course, is going to be the census. And the census kind of worries me a little bit if we end up not having the amount of people we really need so that we can get the proper funding for our city. But then again, the time limitation for us to successfully take a section of the annexation process that was actually brought to the council by me in my previous administration, which is a corridor, which is I-19 to Pilot, to the railroad tracks and the Coronado National Forest boundary. That would probably give us, I don't know, I'm not sure, but it could probably give us another 1,500 more residents for the city of Nogales, which would help us. But I honestly don't think, I don't know, I had a short meeting with Mr. Massey about annexation, and there is a process that we have to go through, and then there's a certain amount of time, I believe it's 120 days, Mr. Massey, that we would go out for signatures. Could you explain for that?
Yes, and I have provided you, Mr. Mayor, the publication that's put out by the Arizona League of Cities and Towns, and so there's a cookbook, step-by-step process. It can be pretty quickly, Mayor, but it can take up to, what the deadline is you have up to a year. Once you file the petition for annexation, and that petition has to go through a couple of things before it's ready to be filed. One, the first step is you prepare a map. Then we deliver that map to both the Department of Revenue and the local assessor's office. And they come up with all the parcels that are going to be inside of the map and the parcel valuation. And the reason why that's important is because once the petition gets filed, then there's two thresholds that you have to meet as far as signature. One is 50% plus one of all the people living within the area to be annexed, and the other is at least 50% of the land value, taxable land value in that area. And so once we get a map, we deliver it to the assessor and to the DOR, and the statute says that they have 30 days to respond with a full list of all parcel numbers. But even the annexation booklet recognizes that 30 days, although it's set in statute, that is aspirational. Reality is probably closer to 60 days. And the reason why you need to get that number very, very and clear as far as who lives there and who owns property there is because once you file the petition, then you have to have a 30-day waiting period, and within the last 10 days of that 30-day, which means filing the petition with the county recorder's office, it gets filed with the, then you wait 20 days, and then between 20 and 30 days, you have to have a public hearing. But in order to have a public hearing here at City Council, you have to provide notice. And so you need that list in order to provide the proper notice. So the very first step is get the list of the parcel numbers, the property owners, and the people who live there. And then we provide that notice. You have the hearing, and at the hearing, it's up to the City Council whether you're going to go forward and approve the proposed petition or not. And then if you do, then you have up to a year at that point to collect the signatures. And again, the signatures have to be on 2 different lists. But if you get that done right away, it can be done right away. But then it has to be adopted as an ordinance. And so all the rules of ordinance apply. It cannot be adopted as an emergency ordinance. It has to wait 30 days between the ordinance passage to the effective date. And in that 30 days, you can circulate referendum petitions. You can have a challenge by one of the people in the district, and the challenge would be in court, and then or before the council. You can do either or both. And then after 30 days, if nothing has happened, no challenges, no protests, no referendum petition that has met the signature threshold, 30 days after that, it's official. So it can be done quickly if we get the signatures circulating and we get the positive feedback. The last go around, this is just from my recollection, we got negative feedback from the fire district, the Rio Rico Fire District. Their boundary goes down to Old Ruby Road, not the current Ruby Road. So again, when you're looking at what potential map you're looking at, maybe you want to minimize the amount of, if it's possible to entirely exclude them or at least minimize them. That they would oppose it doesn't mean it stops dead. It just means, okay, you've got some headwinds. You still need to get the signatures though.
Yes,
Just for clarification, because in the educational field, who gets the signatures? Like, we're not allowed to do it ourselves. Anybody here, a worker, our staff can't get signatures or anything.
I don't have that answer for you. That's a good question. This is a nonpartisan, and so the general prohibitions on partisan participation by city employees may or may not apply. That's a great question. I just don't have the answer.
If you could just find for us for the
Yes.
August meeting or something.
Right.
I for one, Mayor, look, we need to look at our revenue sources. What we're getting from the federal government, what we're getting from the state government, what we're getting from HERF monies, and you know, that gas station over there is a big retail deal. The warehouses are of no value to us because we don't have a property tax. But the gas station is, I don't know if it was included originally.
It was.
It was.
That was basically the target location.
I think that and the bodies that we can add to the census will bring us money. People, I remember the last time people like to say, well, if you can't take care of Nogales proper, how are you going to do with that north? Well, my response to that is, we need, in order to take care of Nogales proper, we have to grow along with it, okay? The city of Tempe would like to grow, but they're landlocked in. All the other cities are expanding. They're fighting because when retail comes in, everybody starts to fight for the retail space. Whose it is, the city of Tucson and the city, town of Marana got into a big legal squabble over where these retail parking sales, car dealerships were going to be, because that's a lot of money for them. But I think we should go ahead and continue with this, Mayor, and let's talk about it in August.
Yeah, and the thing also, I remember when Tucson went and annexed the Spanish Trail and Vail and all that. I remember going by there and I couldn't believe it because you saw nothing but desert and a few homes. Go by there now. It's unbelievable. The growth and the retail and everything. So they're doing well. So and like you say, you had to expand. Why it wasn't done in the past 4 years, what I had started, I don't know. I wasn't here, but I wish it would have been done, because that would have been a continuation for the future of Nogales. And by now you probably, the map that the process that we started in my administration at the time, there were 3 phases. Phase 1 was a corridor, the business corridor, I-19. Phase 2 was from the railroad tracks to Patagonia Highway, which was the Little Red Schoolhouse. Phase 3 was from the Little Red Schoolhouse all the way to the Coronado National Forest in Keno Springs. And the reason we went for corridor, the first corridor, or the business corridor, was because of the gas station and a future hotel that is planned right in the corner. And then there was also talk about building another truck stop, was Love's, across the street on the west side of it. So right now we wouldn't be talking about this right now if it would have been continued, because I honestly believe you would have gotten the votes of the people, because the people in Chula Vista and some of those areas, there were some opposed to it because they came to the council at the time, but a lot of them understood that they already pay sewer. They wanted to have sanitation, and they wanted to have police protection and fire, because our firemen are now responding to that area as it is. We're assisting the two-back fire. I mean, two-back fire, yeah, because Suburban doesn't have ambulance.
And mutual aid.
Yeah, mutual aid. So we could give them that service, and honestly, I don't know how it would work, because they do have a tax that the tax base on their fire district. I don't know if they would eventually not pay that. I'm not sure if we were to annex it, because they wouldn't fall under that.
So they have to finish paying the bonds.
The bonds, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, at least there's something a light at the end of the tunnel for them too. So we could give them the service, Councilman Varona. I know we could give them. I've talked to our fire department and some of the police officers, and they say that they support this move. Yes.
Mayor, if you look at another, as an example, another border community, the city of Douglas, they're going through the same thing that we're going through right now. The only difference that they're doing, they want to increase their sales tax. They're going through some annexation. The only difference that they're doing is they want to raise their property tax. They're going to vote on that. We don't have a property tax, but they're looking for all other avenues to continue to provide quality service to their people. And the position that we're in is we have to work on, number one, work on economic development for our community, and at the same time be conscious through our strategic plan with our revenues and expenses. And finally, that we realize, the 7 of us, we can't go through every budget hearing and say cut, 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 because we're just taking ourselves a step back, and then at the same time it serves as a detrimental avenue toward economic development in our community.
Councilman Ross?
Yes, Mayor, I just want to commend you, because because of your vision. And I agree with annexation, and you have my total support. But I also wanted to address Dr. Vanona's concern about taking the lead. Who takes the lead on this? You know, so that we know the I mean, I understand the process,
Well,
but
let me
who
tell
would
you-
take the lead
well,
on
let me
that
tell you,
process?
if there's nothing there that stops me from circulating a petition,
Mhm.
believe me, I'd be on top of it. So it's up, you bring that information to us, Mr. Massey.
I certainly will.
Because I would love to go have a town hall meeting with the people in Chula Vista and Firestone Gardens and over there by the Coronado School. I've talked to some people already. They say that they support it, you know, because I've been talking to a few people, but not to everybody, just to see where it's at, because I wanted to make sure that if I brought it back to you for discussion, that there was something there for us to at least get a bite on it. And I see that this is going to be very important for the future of Nogales if we just.
Well, and if we're positive and they see a solid council as well as the mayor, of course, with your vision, I think we can do it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any more discussion? Besides one thing, Kissinger, can you bring out the information we had from 5 years ago or 6 years ago when I first presented this in my administration?
Absolutely.
On the maps and
I'll
stuff?
print out the entire packet and put it in everybody's copy by tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much. And, is there anything else on this?
Mayor?
No? We're
Oh,
okay?
yes.
We're okay?
I just wanted,
Because you're having a discussion there with Mr. Hennessy, and you're leaving
We're
tomorrow.
talking about where he's going.
I don't want to,
He's
I
leaving
want to just
tomorrow.
make sure that,
no, I'm just trying to get it back into the free enterprise spirit, and not the governmental tax and spend at it.
Trying to figure out where he's going.
oh, okay.
He didn't
Okay,
tell
sir.
me.
Motion to
Right,
adjourn.
Mayor? We're okay?
Motion to
Okay.
adjourn.
All right, then. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.